So here we are,
Here we
episode
are.
2 of why did I oh my god, this everything sucks about me. I'm
Well,
sorry.
it's episode 1 though. This is the real episode 1, right?
Oh, you're right.
So
Dragon's Ball, and then this is just going to be
this is gonna be episode 1, but seriously.
but actually.
Yeah.
There we go.
But for real this time.
All right, I changed the stream name, all that good stuff.
Okay.
So this is Dragon Ball episode 1, and this is the actual episode 1 of the series that we are going to be dissecting now.
Yeah. Every time we sit down to talk about this, we're like, oh, we should probably get some more context, and so we're just getting.
Yeah.
We've got everything watched now.
I mean, we tried to do it by the arc, and that was just way too much.
Yeah. We also started, on season 2, finished it. And we said, well, we know season 1. Sat down to talk about the series. Okay, we need to rewatch season 1.
Immediately.
Yeah,
Immediately.
So we did that, and now we've watched the full series,
But we should probably introduce ourselves in the show first.
I guess.
I'm Owl. I'm the host of Get the Mic.
And I'm Brock. I'm not the host of Get the Mic,
He is.
but I also am.
We're both the host. We're both hosts.
There's got to be a term for that.
Yeah, I never heard of it though. So anyways, and this is Get the Mic. It's where we dissect things from a mythological point of view, things being media and the like. And we're starting with the most mythological series that I can think of, and all spawned when I told Brock that there was more to this show than he thought.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I grew up on Dragon Ball Z, and I've watched DBZ 4 or 5 times through, easily. So the problem is I didn't actually ever commit to going back to watch Dragon Ball. It was one of those things that was like, I had a bad tendency to hold shows in reserve. It's like, okay, if I can't ever come up with if I'm ever in a situation where I can't come up with something to watch, I always have Dragon Ball. It's kind of one of those. So then, whenever I heard from Owl some of this more mythological and archetypal analysis, I started to realize, like, oh, there's just this whole element of it that I didn't really see any meaning in, but it's clearly there. Once you start dissecting it, I think it's one of those things where you can't disagree with the significance of some of this symbolism, Similar to, like, Peterson's analysis of Cinderella. It's like, if you explain it to somebody, they can't be like, well, that's just your interpretation. It's like,
Right? No, it is the correct interpretation. Which is why postmodernism is garbage.
well, yeah. You would have to be willfully ignorant to deny the analysis in that sense. Right. And I think that's the crux of the problem.
Yeah, and I also, me personally, I think that this show and Dragon Ball Z get a huge bad rap for the Majin Buu saga and Super, which I'm not a big fan of. I doubt we'll ever talk about Super on the show, other than we hate it.
I think it's unfair, kind of in a way, for DBZ to be maligned as it is. And I say that as a DBZ skeptic. Going into this, I had told Al, well, I love DBZ, but I think it's a pretty trash anime. That was my opinion going in. Opinion of someone who, like, is not a full-on weeb but has watched other anime. It was kind of like, oh, well, there's, if you're approaching it from that sort of perspective, it's like, well, this isn't very complex, and it doesn't really say anything new. You're going to have this super skeptical, just like, oh, it's old, so it doesn't have anything of significant value, or there's nothing new to be said about it, too. After something's old enough, it almost seems like, well, you're not in the zeitgeist talking about it, so why would you even want to get into it or talk about it? There's new things that people are talking about. You need to have relevant points of view about those pieces of media. So if you're in that mindset, it's just, you don't really see any relevance in it. It's like, oh, it's there, but it's old, so it's probably inferior.
Well, another thing is, I think the analysis that's happened so far around the show is totally inferior.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, the things that I started seeing once I looked at it through that lens, um, I had never heard it. Not specifically, not in this frame. I'd heard some sort of like, oh, this is kind of similar to that, or like this is analogous to that. Very, very like surface level analysis. But I think that this is more along the lines of the fundamental meaning of the ideas behind things that happen in the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is the idea behind the thing? What is like, what is the motivating factor that would say like, hey, this villain should show up as a snake, or this villain should show up as,
And it's great because Toriyama had no idea apparently.
Apparently,
This is what he said.
I don't know, man.
Yeah,
I take that with a grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing as Evangelion, where the creator is saying things like, it just sounded cool. And then whenever you see what it means, you're like, no, you definitely knew what you were doing there.
Well, I imagine you, Brock, will want to talk about Evangelion on the show at some point.
Well,
we'll get there.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
That's something else for another time.
All right, so that was a little tangent, a little background
for
our analysis going into episode 1. And here it is, episode 1, The Legend of the Dragon Balls. That's what it's called, right? I think so.
It's it is jam-packed with different types of archetypal significance. Though I kind of consider episode like 1 through 3 kind of a single episode in a way.
It's kind of a single entity, yeah.
Yeah, it's a sort of bottled thing. I don't think we'll even get to episode 3 today.
Probably not.
Because we need to introduce some of the concepts that we're going to be talking about.
Well, we've already been streaming for like 15 minutes. We'll see how far we can get. Well,
we've really only been talking for like 5.
That's true. Most of it has been the intro of garbage. No apologies.
But yeah, so we're going to take some time and just talk about characters probably a lot.
Yeah, so I mean, the picture we have on screen we selected for a particular reason. It's and for anyone that doesn't know, the story of Dragon Ball starts off with Goku being completely isolated, and Goku being the main character, the monkey-tailed boy based on Sun Wukong from Journey to the West. If you've read that book, you'll see obvious similarities just from the beginning, but
and for context, I have not read it.
And here, Goku is in the wild. He is self-sufficient, but he's totally isolated from society. So,
yeah, I think in this state, Goku represents a lot of potential. Like, it's interesting because this is sort of a representation of what would you call it, like a pre-cosmogonic Goku, in a sense. If Goku represents good man in a certain way, then this is pre-cosmogonic good man, right? He's like not aware of the complexity of culture. He is completely in nature, right?
Right. It's Adam.
Culture, insofar as it's recorded, right?
Right. It's Adam.
Culture.
It's Adam pre-Eve.
Sure,
right.
Right. And so this is the state. This is sort of what the Bible would consider that sort of balanced state in the garden, right? And so I think that's significant that we start off here, and then that is.
And I mean, look at all the mountains. You could interpret this as a walled garden.
Oh yeah, I mean, and I haven't even been looking out specifically for that imagery all that much, but I think it'll just become evident as we look at these pictures, even if we're just memeing.
I mean, we were when we selected a lot of them, but yeah, I mean, this picture I didn't select because of the mountains, but we're arriving there in our discussion naturally. So yeah, and Goku subsists here, and he doesn't. He doesn't even have an intonation of work at this point, just like Adam, right?
I think it's important too in this sense that it's like he's responsible only for himself, and that in and of itself is a representative state of where you can be in your own life, right? It's sort of like this is the my responsibility transcends myself state of being, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so having a cultural identity, you could say, is that, right? Going and trying, at least attempting to take on the responsibility of something that is bigger than the self, right? And so this sort of hierarchy we see Goku discover in real time for his character, which I think automatically sort of denotes this as an archetypal representation, right? It's sort of this like, here is the whole hierarchy of culture in front of you, and you're coming out of nature and into culture. It's like, okay, well, there's obviously going to be something attached to that you can pluck out and say, like, so this is the idea about culture that you had, at least, right? So automatically, I think, looking at it with that lens, you can see this is just straightforward. The pre-Eve, conscious, you could say, there's an association of self-consciousness with like it's almost a result of cognizance of sexual selection, right? So it's like the ability to be ashamed in front of something else. The consciousness is associated with this sort of like response to the feminine gaze,
Yes. Well, I mean, I think that's made apparent, like in Tom Sawyer, for example. That story.
Right. And that level of self-consciousness obviously takes the individual,
right? But we'll
gives
get
them the
there.
Opportunity to rise to that.
Yeah,
responsibility,
we'll
right?
get there.
So
anything else to say about Goku alone?
No, I think that.
You think that sums it up?
The main thing that I said that I didn't get to, though, is just the potential here. Because the Goku we see here is not like a primal ape, right? He is primed and ready to go straight into a hierarchy. Like because he was raised by his grandpa, right? Who is dead.
There we go. That's what I was wanting to get to.
Right. So, but the potential there is very interesting because he's raised by Grandpa Gohan, and then Grandpa Gohan dies. So you have this person who's been primed to be able to go into the world and, affect it on a scale bigger than just him, fending for himself.
Well, it's also important to note, I would say, that from that perspective, Gohan's perspective, he was successful in raising Goku to be a child that is able to take on the world. And I think that says a lot about if you are trying to be like Goku, then that might be a necessary step in the process, as you may have had to have good parentage.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's definitely this...
Not necessarily two parents or anything like that. Like, it's just Gohan. It's not even a biological parent in this sense, and we'll get on to the alien.
Well, I mean, if we're going to consider this on a biblical sense, it's like he wouldn't have been raised by biological parents, right? It's this sort of other concept that sort of nebulous and difficult to place, but, if you think of...
A child of humanity, let's say.
In a sense.
Yeah.
In a sense. Because there's definitely an analogy of Goku as sort of a son of God motif, right? And so, whenever you look at it that way, then you can look at, well, he was raised by Grandpa Gohan, right? And we'll see the significance of Grandpa Gohan later, so I want to save that conversation
We will
for
save
then.
that conversation for later.
But, so there is significance to that. Also, if we're going to talk about the very beginning of Dragon Ball, so the situation...
Pre-Dragon Ball even, right.
Yeah, is that he's in a state of potential, And so also the potential of youth is sort of one of those other motifs here, because Goku's very, Kid Goku, it's like, it's just so interesting to look at Kid Goku because he's like nothing but potential. Like, he's like potential incarnate that just like, you feed it and it just takes on the world.
Right. You feed it.
Yeah.
Right, and that's another thing. And even Goku in the very beginning is eating a lot, and then that is not just for Japanese food humor.
Yeah. But
whereas in Super it is.
But I was just gonna say the state that Goku's in right now is just indicative of who he is, like as a character. I think throughout a good chunk of Dragon Ball.
I don't think it's just who Goku is. I think it's who children are, and they are all full of potential.
Well, I mean, children are the future. Children are potential incarnate, represented. Like, if you want to think of what does sort of mythological, what does a mythological tale have to say about specifically potential? Well, what do children do and what happens to children and what do children represent and how valuable are children in mythological tales. And then you'll see, because they're not talking about children, they're talking about this idea that children represent, which is potential. And we see that in Goku here, because he is like the ultimate potential child, right? He is like, and in that sense, archetypal. Like, he has the most potential that he possibly could have, because as soon as he encounters the world, he immediately is in that state of saying, okay, I'm ready to take on chaos and create order, right? As passed down from his sort of masculine ideal Gohan.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how.
And
I
the
interpret
idea of that training that Goku has received from his grandfather is the Logos, and it makes him impervious to weapons that would normally kill, which we'll get to in a minute. But I was just gonna say, does that say, and it says something too about the hero, right? Because he eventually grows up to be the hero, and it means that the hero even starts as someone who is fallible and full of potential, though.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think we can move on from this picture.
For sure.
Yes.
And
this
so,
picture
now enters consciousness.
Here comes consciousness. It's true. Here she is.
So
Bulma, yeah,
shows up in what Goku interprets to be a monster.
Well, we'll get there. Let's talk about Bluma first.
So here she is in that monster, the car.
Oh yes, the turbo
monster. Yeah. So Bulma. What do you want to say about Bulma as a character?
Well, I mean, she's arrived here on her own quest, let's say. So she already has a direction, and we'll get into. And she's looked at the Dragon Radar already, but we'll talk more about the Dragon Radar.
She's oriented already, right?
Why did this go back? What in the what? What is going on? Sorry, it's gonna zip around in these pictures for a second. It's gonna spoil some of these pictures. I don't know why I was doing that.
Okay.
But yeah, she already has somewhat of a direction. Right now, Goku's directionless. So she is further along in her journey, which I think is important to understand how she awakens. Older. Yeah, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
For this to happen, because if she was like Goku's age, I don't think that the archetype wouldn't be there. It wouldn't.
No,
work.
It doesn't function, and that's why when like Goku meets Chi-Chi, it's not like
that interaction is totally different.
Yeah, the dynamic of that interaction isn't like Goku stops what he's doing with Bulma to do what Chi-Chi's doing. You know what I mean? Because like if you wanted to go down that road, it's just kind of like, but it's not the same age female. It just doesn't seem to be in an archetypal sense. It's very and I think that's just representative of biology.
Well, I think it's it's the maturity. Like young men, right, aren't gonna look at a young girl and let's say they're somewhat pubescent, right, like entering that territory. They're not gonna be and we'll go back to biology here. They're not gonna be, let's say, nervous or afraid to talk to girls that still look like girls that are younger than them even, right? That fear comes from the self-consciousness that you're not all you could be, and therefore this beautiful woman, let's say, why do you do this? I don't even know why it keeps switching. I'm not pressing anything, I swear. It's just like, well, let's go back.
It just keeps being like, hey, you like this picture of Goku, don't you? What if you looked at it again? It's pretty good.
Whatever. Anyways. So yeah, I think that says something about the awakening of consciousness for young men, is that it comes from a mature woman, right?
Yes, and that's a Freudian sort of. I would say that Freudian psychology is, at its core, a manifestation of that thing.
I agree strongly. But yeah, I mean,
and so like as far as archetypal significance goes, I mean, you definitely can't discount the imagery of sort of the
Well, we also see
non-self-aware young boy and the older female.
right, and we also see later on her maturity based on her interactions with Goku. Because right now she's very flawed. She's selfish, deceitful, arrogant, not quite resentful, but she is deceitful and arrogant.
For sure.
And
Yeah, I mean, you can see it immediately because we'll get to that, but she embodies definitely a self-aware, like, she knows that she is being deceitful, and she's willingly being deceitful in a way and being manipulative.
yeah, we'll get there, but
yeah, I agree.
right, and even it doesn't even matter that the archetypal female is flawed like that. She'll still inspire that consciousness, and it's a symbiotic relationship. But is there anything else you want to say about?
Well, yeah, I would say
Bulma?
for sure symbiotic. You know, there's sort of a whenever you see something like this, like something that almost resembles the like, Garden of Eden, like it's almost like you have to take it on that scale and be like, well, there's
think about that
significance to certain
too.
things.
Think about that too. It was Eve that bites the fruit first and becomes knowledgeable, right? And I think that is
Well, Bulma is extremely knowledgeable. That's part of her character as well. Like,
yes, but I was getting to I was gonna say that I think that is because evolutionarily wise, like speaking about fruit, let's say, and I think you've heard about this.
oh yeah,
When Peterson was talking about it, right? That we as when we were still in like the trees, we would have to distinguish colors of fruits in order to be able to eat them, and that was the knowledge of fruit in food on where it is, and then you can extrapolate that to be like, how do we gather more food, right? And that's like the birth of knowledge, and that's why it's a fruit in the Bible. Now,
but there's also this representation of this birth of knowledge being in the feminine, right? Because there is a
Well, that's what I
certain
was saying,
level
yeah.
of knowledge that has to come with protecting the young of the species, right? It's the neuroticism that's necessary in the biological.
well, I was
sense
saying
is
because
there.
typically speaking, the females of, let's say, these hunter-gatherer tribes, or even previous before that, hominids, right, were the ones that were doing the foraging. They were collecting the fruits and the berries and the things like that, right? Where the men were hunting, and it's not the same
Exactly, yeah.
instance, right?
That too. I mean, it's all kind of this
Connected web, yeah.
Well, I think that's something that scared a lot of people off of archetypal analysis type stuff, because it's like you can't in one breath. It's like it's not in vogue. You can't in one breath just say like, oh yeah, this is that. Like, you can't just say like this is an analogy to that and then it's done. It's like, no, there are lots of levels of analysis to put through some of these images, right?
Yeah.
So it's not easy, and so the process of talking about it is kind of a detangling, in a sense, of different ideas.
Right, and so to fully explain this idea of the awakening female, right? I think that was important to talk about all those aspects. And
Yes.
here, Bluma has that, and we'll talk about it in a minute.
Oh, yeah.
Already, and she has that birth of knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get into that. Anything else you want to say about Bluma?
No, all I want to say is, if you're still with us, it's about to get good.
I think we have 2 viewers right now. So let's go on.
No, I'm talking to the people watching this VOD, because we're good in the future.
Oh,
And so
I
they're
see.
going to come back and they're going to be like, man, these guys aren't very good right now, but at least they kind of know what they're talking about.
Okay, so I guess it's about to get good. Okay, so here it's about to get good. So this is when Goku and Bulma first interact.
Well, I say this is going to get good because this is the proof of the archetypal analysis. If you're skeptical right now, I think this is the convincing part, because immediately Goku meets Bulma and he's like, wow, you're different. And so he's like walking a circle around her like an animal would, right? And
Yeah.
he's like inspecting her, and he's like, "You don't have a tail," and he's trying to check her out, and it's like this is so representative of this becoming aware of the existence of the feminine and being. She's just like flashes the dragon radar out there.
I don't know why.
I'm delayed in my reactions, so sorry.
It's fine.
But, so yeah, I mean, it's so obvious because he goes and he's like, he takes his power pole and goes to lift up her skirt, and she's like, "What are you doing?"
And he has just no knowledge.
And
that
he
it's
has
anything,
no awareness,
yeah.
right? That, and he's still not aware yet, right? But you can see it now that it's like basically the first thing the show does, and it's like you would interpret this to just be funny, right? It's like, oh, it's hilarious.
It's a joke.
It's goofy Japanese humor. It's kind of lewd, haha. But at the same time, it's like, well, this is relevant, and Toriyama felt it necessary at the very beginning of this, right? So the first thing we're seeing is Goku become aware of the feminine, and so here he is, literally becoming aware of the feminine, and of course, his reaction is just like, first of all, the car is a monster.
Yeah, he picks up the car and throws it. Right, he has no knowledge of technology either.
Right, he doesn't have the knowledge that she
But that's
has.
significant, is that she's bringing the technology to him,
Yes.
that birth of knowledge we were talking about before. And here, Goku's reaction, right, it is stark to say the least. Not so much in the humor. I mean, yeah, it is funny, but at the same time, it's
There's also
the first interfacing
yes,
that Goku's had with with society at large, let's say.
and what we're gonna see as we go on, of course, is that not only does Bulma have knowledge, but Bulma is generating knowledge. So, as an idea, if you're going to talk about characters and the ideas that they can
Well, I mean,
represent,
think about what role she plays in the future
of course,
of everything. Right?
yes,
Yeah.
So, but she isn't an inventor. She's a, I mean, she creates.
Yeah. She creates. That's for sure. And I mean, that's why she is such an excellent. It's so strange that she is, but she's an excellent example of
Archetypal feminine.
Archetypal femininity, and she's such a masculine character, though, that it's weird that it works out like that.
Well, I think it's necessary that she has the masculine element in a sense, because it's like, how you. This is gonna sound bad, but if you're going to understand that all archetypal analysis tends to stem from this idea or this construct of like masculinity equaling exploration of new territory being a thing where it's like you go out and you conquer something.
But see, that's and that, evolutionarily speaking, is what men did hunting.
Yes, but so if you're going to tie in the masculine concept that heavily into literally just going and doing things, then it kind of just gets tangled in there. So it's like, Bulma is archetypal feminine traits, but it's stapled onto a masculine sort of
There are some
embodiment.
masculine traits, like, for sure, within Bulma.
Sure. I mean, well, I think there's masculine traits in women in general, in the way that they have to interface with the world anyway. And I think that there's sort of this cultural misnomer about what that means. It's like, you call a woman masculine, she's going to take it poorly. You call a man feminine, he's going to take it poorly. But it's like we all embody both in different ways, at different amounts, at different times. It's like, it's not that simple. So, I don't think it detracts from Bulma being an archetypal feminine character, that she acts in masculine ways.
No, but it's interesting because the idea of, like, waifus, for example.
Oh yeah, well that's the inverse of it, right?
Yeah, that's the antithesis of what it actually should be.
Well, it's it's sort of one of those case in point situations where it's like, let's take the opposite to its logical conclusion and see how we feel about it. And well, eventually you're going to hear about how I feel about it, but not today.
No, we're not getting into that today.
But yeah, I think it's important. I think that there is a I mean, also, hot take here, but I don't think that masculinity as a concept is toxic. So this, you also just have to understand that, like, there are all positive aspects of masculinity that any person, any human being can embody. And so also in that sense, it's just like,
I think it goes beyond humanity, to be honest.
I just think that also we're speaking against this attack on masculinity, right? So it's like we have to,
It's all right.
Put-
We don't really need to
yeah, but
go there.
no, we're
I
not
don't think so.
going there. But I
Okay,
mean,
good.
But it's just, it's almost like we feel like we have to justify the masculine traits in things, because it's like,
Well, I just
masculine, then it's
wanted
only
to
masculine,
I
you
just
know what
wanted
I
to
mean? It's
yeah,
kinda like-
exactly. And I just wanted to bring it up to say that the archetypal female, or let's say the quintessential feminine character, should be someone who has, like Sleeping Beauty, squared her masculine and feminine traits. So like we talked about Sleeping Beauty already once before, but in that movie,
Well, I think
the,
that's almost inevitable in this conversation.
right, the kiss between Prince Philip and Aurora, right, that's her awakening of her masculine side that is saving her feminine side from that, and then they both
From decay.
coexist. It's really all about Aurora. It's an Aurora's psyche. It's not as much about you know, an action scene, let's say. But that's much like Dragon Ball. It's like there are action scenes, but if you look at only that, then you're looking at you're missing the forest for the trees.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better.
So, in this scene here, I would say that Bulma coming in is complete chaos. It's new information, and Goku has lived, at least as far as we know, in pretty much relative sameness for the past however long. It seems like he's used to the area. And
Well, he
used to
definitely
his life.
demonstrates that he's basically at the top of the food chain anywhere
Right.
he goes in nature, right?
Well, he's also it's not like his grandfather died recently. He's not still mourning him or anything.
Yeah,
like
he's
that.
not. It's not like this started when Gohan died. It's just like that's just a point of Goku's origin. Moving on.
Moving on.
Yeah.
And so here, Goku interfacing with Chaos for the first time. Now, we'll see how his interface with Chaos grows as the story goes, and that will actually give us some indications on how the archetypal hero should act when confronted with new information. So we'll get there in a minute.
Oh yeah.
But right now, let's talk about orientation.
Yes. So Bulma is only here and has only found Goku because she is oriented towards something. Specifically, she's oriented towards a Dragon Ball, which, well, as far as archetypal significance goes, a Dragon Ball basically means Chaos Ball. So she is oriented towards finding chaos, so to speak, finding the new.
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, she is just way higher on the hierarchy than Goku is, right? Like she's oriented, she is heading towards capturing chaos and conquering it. Goku doesn't even realize that that's a thing that can happen yet.
Right.
He's in that state prior to understanding that that's a thing that you could do, I would say. And now, in this image, he's learning about it.
Right, she's pointing towards what she's oriented to, and she's oriented to finding new information such that she can get whatever it is she wants, and that's how it happens. Why?
Yeah, and in a sense, in this scene, Goku's learning about wanting to get something. Before this, we don't see Goku want for more than self-sustaining actions, right? He's very, like, he hunts a big fish and eats it, and that's just what he does. He just lives out in the woods, and he takes care of himself, and that's it. So, wanting, in the grander sense of, like, wanting for something, he just doesn't do that. And then it's like, boom, here's something that you want, right? And he's like, oh, I guess I do. And he orients himself towards that thing. So it's kind of, I think, multiple concepts stacked on top of each other here that Bulma represents.
Yeah, and I think the reason that Bulma is able to be oriented the way she is because she's interfaced with this chaos, right? She's taken this new information and created something from it,
Oh yeah.
and that allowed her to orient herself towards this goal. Now, this goal, her goal, which is to find a boyfriend, which you would be like, oh, that's hilarious. It's like, actually, that is part of the archetypal female tale.
Right, and we see that later, much later on with Chi-Chi.
Yes, and actually, yeah, we'll talk about that when we get to Chi-Chi, but the and we'll see how her efforts play out. But even before this, when they're talking about the Dragon Ball and Goku's house, because we need to talk about that too, how she was deceitful towards Goku when she says that, you know, she just wants to travel with him. She just likes the Dragon Balls. She didn't tell him about the wish and all that, or did? I can't quite remember.
You know, it's a very Eve thing too. It's kind of like, I'm not telling you the consequences of this journey for Dragon Balls, which is
Just eat this
I'm
fruit.
not telling you the consequences of self-consciousness, right?
Right, just eat this fruit.
Yeah, just go on this journey, so to speak.
Right, and orient yourself towards and orient yourself towards anything.
Yeah, orient yourself. Literally, I think the Dragon Radar is just the ability to orient yourself. Period.
And it's
in a sense.
But it's also Bluma's way of orienting yourself, and we'll get to how Goku orients himself later on. But he hasn't quite been able to even fathom that yet. Let's see. Yeah, I think, and so here we can also see the Dragon Radar itself. I love the design of this thing. The lights, particularly, that it blinks the lights, and the Dragon Balls also glow when they're close to each other, and I think that is indicative of illumination, right?
Oh yeah, I mean,
and I know it's just a regular radar, but it could have been something else. It didn't have to be. It didn't have to look like this.
It could be a compass. I mean, it could be.
Yeah, it could be a compass. It could be
a heads-up display that just displays like.
But that's what I'm saying. It's one step further from orientation. Because like a compass, you'd be pointing at what, let's say, you want.
Yeah,
right?
so, I mean, I guess a compass would literally just be orientation, right?
Right, and it's one step further. One further level of
abstraction, she built it,
illumination. Right.
She has, it's a plan. Like, this isn't just orientation. Like, she has constructed a thing that will allow her...
Yeah, she's already taken necessary steps.
So, I think that... Yeah, I think you're right in that sense, because it's like, here's her plan, and then she tells Goku, hey, here's my plan, and Goku's like, seems like a pretty good plan. I didn't have a plan because I didn't know plans existed, but now that you've told me that there's plans, like, damn,
maybe I'll start planning some things.
That's a good, I'm gonna go with your plan for now.
Yeah.
And we'll base our plan on that.
yeah,
and
exactly.
That's how the archetypal hero should be, because it's like, oh, new information, I'm not gonna run away from it.
Or worse, I'm not going to act like I already knew it when I didn't.
Sure.
Right, and this is a complete absence, I would say, of the unholy trinity of arrogance, deceit, and resentment in Goku. He has none of those things.
Right, it's not... He
has humility.
Right, he doesn't have the envy to try to take that from her or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because it's like, Goku's strong, he could just take it, right? If he wasn't a good character, you know... If you wanted to have a really nihilistic view towards it, it'd be like, wow, Goku's dumb because he didn't steal it, you know? It's like, you have to understand that he's orienting himself in, like, a fundamental way.
Well, and then that's the other thing, is that he's also accepting that someone knows something that he needs to know.
Exactly.
Even if it's coming from a girl, let's say. Sure. And I think that's why, another reason why the show is it's almost a myth for our time.
Well, I also want to point out, you know, because you had mentioned the masculinity in Bulma, but I think that this show in particular conveys dominance hierarchies by masculine strength, in a sense. Like, there's this interesting thing about, you know, and this is just leaping forward, I'm not going off on a tangent, but you see, like, who Chi-Chi eventually becomes, right? She's always very masculine in the way that she's, like, domineering, you know, and she's very, like, we see these... So what I'm saying is, right now, Bulma is more masculine than Goku is.
It's actually funny that
episodes.
the female characters in Dragon Ball get so much shit from the community
Oh, we're gonna get into that. Okay.
because they actually, it's kind of awesome because like the weakest female character, and I mean moral weakness, I don't mean weak as in a bad character, is Launch, is Blue Launch, and we'll get to
Yeah.
Launch.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we'll get there.
We'll get there.
But yeah,
But
but
Toriyama generally writes strong female characters, right?
well, specifically because I think there's this dynamic that he wants to represent that, like, it's not bad. Like, the archetypal female story is not bad. Like, that she's strong in her position, right? Like Chi-Chi controls the home, and Launch controls the home when she's in the home. Like, they're strong. Like, and he shows it with strength, right? And so this bullshit. I think it's fucking bullshit that there's this feeling that these characters are not good, or that it's bad female representations and stuff like that.
Because
It's
they
like,
have
no.
children.
Well, you can lump all the masculine traits and just say all those are bad, and it's like, okay, what else you got? What's left over? Does that sound like a good story to you?
Mm-hmm.
Does it sound like you could construct something that people would like digest and take something away from?
So yeah, I just wanted to quickly bring that up before we move on to
Yeah.
Pilaf. So Pilaf, it's interesting because Brock was talking about Pilaf not long ago, thinking that he was pretty much just a joke character, like a prototype a little bit, but like,
Well, I mean, before I really knew much about this, I kind of just interpreted him to be like, okay, he's like, main character needs a foil. He's going to be the foil to the main character that he has to beat. And so he just kind of plays that role, and he's kind of goofy, and he's comic relief. That was basically my full analysis of Pilaf.
before
like,
episode 13.
The general story. Because I had watched season 1 a while back. Like a long time ago, probably 7 years or so. Oh, Bulma's back. Hey, Bulma. We have transitioned away from you. I think we talked about you long enough.
Yeah, get out of here.
So yeah, that was basically it for me. Looking back on Pilaf, and that's what I thought of him whenever I watched it before. Now, it's a little interesting. He has a lot of traits that I think I initially had interpreted as just being like, just a cultural thing. It's sort of like, okay, he's just a small emperor. That's it. But I think that there's something to be said about him being a child emperor. I think that Pilaf, this is sort of my hot take, or not hot take, but my first take on Pilaf, because I haven't really talked to you about Pilaf that much.
Yeah, that's why it started that off like that. So.
Oh yeah.
Why?
What is going? What? It didn't do this before.
I didn't do this before. I don't know. Next time actually, I might just do that now.
Ooh. Well, as you do that, I will say that
Yeah,
I think
you
that
talk.
there's something important to be said about Pilaf being in this child emperor state, because we're going to do this a lot because of how archetypal it really is, but I want to compare Emperor Pilaf to like a Peter Pan type character, but he's almost like Peter Pan and Captain Hook rolled in one. There's this kind of, not Captain Hook necessarily in the sense that Captain Hook's like represents an adult that's running away from the inevitability of their, death, you could say. Not in that sense, but he's like, if Peter Pan was malicious in the way that Hook was, he feels, in a sense, that way, right? He's like the king of the Lost Boys. His thing is he just like, or not really in what he's doing, but in his character, he's just like the malformed ruler, and you see it in his childish behavior, right? It's kind of weird. I found it weird before whenever I was watching it. I was kind of like, why is he just so childish? Why does he act like that? And so now, looking at him, I'm like, oh, of course he's so childish. I think he's childish because we're kind of comparing him to Kid Goku, right? It's kind of like, here's the good way to be whenever you're young, and so that you can approach the world in a way that you could get what you need, be forthright, and people won't want to steal from you per se.
I think
Not
keep going,
in the
keep
way
going.
that they won't want to steal your wish in the way that, the good oriented characters eventually wanted to intercept and how basically he bore his own fruits and what happened to him. But I think it's important archetypally that it's like if we're gonna look at what we're gonna compare Goku against starting off like immediately, it's like this is how not to be when young, right?
Right. It's especially poignant when he's young as well. It's because he thinks he's entitled to this, but has no maturity or experience to go on, and he's a coward specifically, right?
Well, it's also important to point out that he starts with everything, and Goku starts with nothing, right?
Yeah.
He has his own empire already.
His own castle.
He never needed to get it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
as far as we see,
as far as we've seen, I mean,
Unless
he's a
there's-
child emperor, so I think it's like the implication.
yeah, the implication of it for sure that he's inherited it.
Yes.
Right.
Um,
He is not in tune with nature, right?
Definitely not. He is not in tune with his nature, I would say, because of that, right?
He rejects the idea that he's a coward actually consistently and is deceitful about it, even to the point of someone having their hand in a cookie jar and you catching them and saying, my hand's not in the cookie jar.
Oh yeah, they're just like, look how brave I am. Runs away.
Yeah. But it's a complete cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, I would say you see this just split. He's so dishonest that
He's dishonest to himself.
he is dishonest to himself, and he tells himself that he is really the
The
emperor.
mighty emperor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That he, and you know, the ultimate lie to himself is that he just inherently deserves what he has by his circumstance, right? Or what he deserves everything by his circumstance. Ultimately,
Well, I think another reason too, or another thing to point out, is the nebulousness of his wish. He wants to rule the world. That's it. What does that mean? Nothing specific. It's so imprecise. Now, talking about orientation, you have Goku oriented to the chaos that he's just encountered, and you have Pilaf who thinks he's going to orient. He's arrogant and deceitful enough to think he's going to be able to orient himself towards a position of power he hasn't earned.
yeah, definitely. And you know, so if we're gonna say, okay, here's an archetypal analysis of Dragon Ball, Goku good. I mean, then for season 1, Pilaf is bad, right? There's a lot of Luciferian arrogance in the way that Pilaf approaches everything, and he basically looks down on literally everybody. If he has a chance to look down on somebody, he does it. He looks down on
And
the people
yeah,
who do
how he
everything for
treats
him.
these two
Yeah.
people, right?
Yeah, I
that
mean,
travel with them.
we see immediately, you know, he's just
Outwardly abusive.
abusive towards them. He basically makes them do everything for him. He's earned, it looks like from his behavior, he's earned nothing that he has
Yeah.
by his own will.
And earned
Contrast-
nothing by building his character. We don't necessarily mean
Yeah.
earned it by.
Well, I could say earn,
what I
like,
mean.
as in literally, like, what has he cultivated, right? And then when we see Goku, he is literally cultivating from nature
Mm-hmm.
that which he needs, right? So it's, you know, on the backs of other people versus
Yeah, and that's important to note
on
is
your
that
own back.
the strength, quote unquote, of this party, let's say, lies in Mine Shu,
Yes.
where the intelligence lies with Pilaf.
Well, it's a split,
Let's say.
right? It's not
What little
one
there is
being,
there.
too, in a sense. It's
Yeah.
like 3 impotent beings coming together to try to form into someone who could possibly be as oriented as Goku and still can't, right?
Well, yeah, exactly, and it's because it's not as that he's not as oriented. He's definitely oriented towards the goal. The problem is that he's aiming at the wrong goal.
Well, I guess honest is more of what I'm
Right,
saying. Like,
yeah.
Like, I'm trying to think of what term I'm really looking for because oriented is too general. He's not. Internal, the 3 of them together cannot amount to internal consistency, right? So it's like, it is only something that can be achieved for the one, right? It's like Goku. You have to be of the moral character of Goku and sustain yourself and like take the responsibility of yourself on, right? To be of the moral level of Goku, and he like can't do it. He has to lean on other people, and it's like even the 3 of them put together don't amount to the moral value of the individual who is centered on being of value in and of themselves and to more than
And being
just
of value to
themselves.
other people. And we'll get
more,
on
yeah.
to how Goku is of value to people, to others, even more than just Bulma in just a minute.
Right. I say all of that because that's represented in their failures against Goku throughout the season, as they can't best him. They can't beat him. They can't ultimately outsmart him. Like,
Yeah.
they can sort of try to, but it doesn't work out in their favor because you can't get away with it.
Well, let's also talk about
So it's,
their designs. I mean, as far as, let's talk about Mai and Shu's designs. They're both, one of them is designed as a spy. She has the red star there on her patch, and she's wearing a trench coat, right? She has typically wielding the guns in the group. So she's a spy, and Shu is a ninja, right? So let's take the aspects of those, right?
Okay.
Think about that.
all right.
The methods by which that he uses, right, are deceitful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an outward manifestation of Pilaf's own will.
So you could say that he's kind of like the tail, and she's basically his Bulma, but he's using them in a totally different way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had never even thought of that.
Right, and that's why I'm glad we're talking
Well,
about it.
I mean, it's obvious to me now that it's important that, I mean, look at him. She's much taller than he is, right? She's much older.
Shu is the animalistic form, right?
And so it's like, Goku, if you look at Bulma as sort of the feminine side of Goku now, what Goku does with the feminine side of himself is, of course, forthrightly approach chaos and try to, to conquer it honestly, let's say, right?
Right.
And the opposite of that would be exactly this. He is using his feminine aspect
Enslaved, let's say.
He has dominated his feminine aspect and essentially is just using her to sneak around and steal and be manipulative and essentially lie. So he's being dishonest through her.
Right, exactly.
And with himself through her.
Right, and I think that is another reason why, and that might be a question that people ask, or a plot hole, let's say, like, oh, why don't they just leave if they're treated so badly? And it's like, that's not the point. They're supposed to represent part of Pilaf.
Right. There is no Pilaf without them. Like,
It's true, and we'll see throughout the series, they never leave Pilaf, and they never will, because they're part of Pilaf.
yeah, ultimately.
Yeah.
I mean, and so this is why, ultimately, we understand that in Super, Pilaf and Trunks are in a relationship.
Pilaf and Trunks.
Because
You
obviously...
just said Pilaf and Trunks.
Yeah.
Wait, Pilaf
Yeah.
and Trunk?
That's just the feminine aspect of Pilaf.
Oh, I see
So
what you mean.
really, you must understand, it's not that
Yeah.
Kid
Oh my
Trunks
god.
is dating an older woman.
Oh my
He's
god.
just with the child emperor right now. It's much better.
Which is why Super does not. Oh god, Super. Super is just an abomination.
So yeah. That just occurred to me.
Oh my gosh. And the last thing I do want to say is about Shu, how he treats Shu, right? Like, he treats Shu much worse than he treats Mai.
I didn't think we were going to need a screenshot from the fart scene.
Neither did I, but so there's a scene
There's a scene
in episode 2. No, we'll get to it. We'll talk about it in episode 2 if we have any screenshots of that.
No.
If not, we'll come back to this one.
Anyway, but yeah, so
Anyway,
introducing the characters, I think we generally understand. Like, he's very, but yeah, he's pretty much just like a bully to Shu.
right, and actually, if you think about other archetypal stories, you were talking about Harry Potter the other day, and I think the first 3 Harry Potters are pretty archetypal. First 3 Harry Potter books.
Mm-hmm. And the conclusion, obviously.
And think about Harry and Malfoy. Right, that's like Goku and Pilaf, as much as they are different.
Yeah, because Goku comes from nothing.
Yeah.
Draco comes from the rich family.
Yes, exactly.
Goku represents the lion.
They're also both of them are completely unaware of real malice in the world.
I said Goku represents the lion. Harry.
Harry, yeah.
Goku Potter.
Goku Potter. They both are completely ignorant of real malice in the world.
Yeah, they come from, well, that pre-cosmogonic state,
Well, and that,
in a sense, right? It's like it has to... The reason that it's archetypal is because it originates there, right?
Right. But what I'm trying to set up for future episodes is that the villains that Goku will encounter later on are not devoid of real teeth, let's say, like Pilaf is.
Right. I think it's important
To note that in the beginning it's lower stakes.
Well, in the beginning, season 1, we are comparing Goku to Pilaf. Beyond that, we're comparing the other villains to Pilaf to show, like, now these villains are grown up.
This is the art. This is
Yeah.
the new hierarchy that Goku will have to.
Yes, and
confront.
so that establishes the layers of what the analysis is going to be.
Right, and we'll talk about how those layers add on to the story and why I think, and that those layers are exactly why I think Dragon Ball supersedes any other mythological story so far, which is why I think it's so important. It's huge. It's huge.
Oh, it's big to me, and I'm already learning stuff in the first episode. So
We're in episode 1.
Yeah.
How long are we into this? Oh my goodness. We're far into this.
oh, you listen to EFAP.
We're 1 hour.
Oh, that's fine.
Congratulations. We'll get to that.
Oh yeah.
Anyways, so
So
let's talk about this next. The pterodactyl kidnapping Bulma.
I'll let you take that one.
Okay, so I wanted to include this because it adds that first level of heroism from Goku, let's say, where he is willing to risk his own safety to save someone else, and this being his feminine form. Or his feminine counterpart, let's say, at this point. Because Bulma actually isn't so attached to Goku as the psyche of Pilaf, and we'll see how that evolves. Goku is able to let go of Bulma later on in season 1. But here, I wanted to bring this up so that we could talk about Goku's conquering of, and this isn't malice as much as it is nature, right? Goku's conquering of nature fully to establish that, right? Not just eating and killing a fish, but defending himself and defending those he cares about.
Well, simultaneously doing that, and I mean, he's slaying the dragon, right? I mean, this is...
Yeah, the predator, right, exactly.
Well, I mean, this one in particular, it's a flying reptilian predator that's carrying away the first archetypal feminine form we see, and then
right.
the first
the
masculine
treasure,
form we see.
The treasure, let's say.
Goes and slays the dragon, and I mean, so we see this immediately. It's like, well... Encased in the first episode, we see the very first hierarchy.
Well,
right here.
and the reason I wasn't necessarily bringing that up is because the hierarchy of dragons. This is a low dragon.
Well,
hierarchy.
I want to associate it with that. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Because I think what we're going to be talking about a lot is that these are nested sort of within each other.
Yes.
And so that analysis, that first analysis, right? That's sort of that St. George like story. Here we are. It's like the sort of, here's our first tier of analysis. It's like sort of it's the cap of the first episode.
Yeah. Confront the dragon, get the gold.
So it's like,
confront the dragon,
well,
get the gold.
it's almost like you think of it as an analogy of Goku like become self-aware, right? And then he's like, there's something I can do that's greater than me. So he goes to do it and is immediately confronted with chaos. And it's like, okay, well then here's your test.
Right,
Prove it.
exactly. His
so-
fully conquering of
And so
that first prototypal.
And also right
hierarchy.
now, Bulma doesn't just represent Bulma, she represents the Dragon Radar. Like, she's the plan. Like,
She's everything, right?
she has created the plan. Goku just got the plan. He's like, Chaos is threatening to take the plan away immediately. So what do you do? Well, you conquer the chaos so that you don't lose the plan.
Yeah, you
right?
do what you can to stop that. So here, Bulma, even though Bulma is very valuable to Goku at this point,
Yeah.
and so that's the gold he's getting from conquering the dragon. But I think it's important that you bring up the St. George story, because that is the exact reward that St. George gets from killing the dragon, is marrying the princess.
Sure. And it's not being represented here in that same sense. It's being represented in Dragon Ball as like the first thing. Essentially, it's like the first step. So I really like that it's here, and I want to sort of as we go along establish a tier of these different archetypal sort of ideas, right? And it's like, as we do that, I think we'll see some through lines and kind of associate ideas throughout all these different archetypal stories.
Well, an idea I just had, because I mean, we'll get into the dragon-like nature of some of the villains Goku later encounters, but for the most part, not many of them look as dragon-like as this creature, let's say.
Sure. I mean, I think at the end of the second episode, there's just T-Rex walking by, right? Yeah. So there's lots of other representations of the sort of snake-like, chaotic, dragon-like
thing. And what I mean by that is how this particular dragon type is nested within these hierarchies. And we'll get into how...
Yeah, like, this isn't the dragon. Like,
right.
This isn't the eternal dragon, right?
Right, that's exactly what I was getting into.
Lower tier, lower resolution Shinron, so to speak, right? This is just a... Real quick, I'm gonna conquer a small chaos.
Yeah. A small chaos that's impeding me. One that I can do without much effort. And that's how it starts. And that's how you can start building upon yourself, is by conquering small dragons that you can see in your own life.
But for a good reason.
Right, for a good
oriented toward a good purpose, as Goku is.
And that purpose, and I think it's solidified with Bulma here, should be something outside of yourself. Should be something that you deem greater than yourself.
Yes, right. Like, Pilaf's is basically, it's just himself. It's
and like, that will lead
you... Elevate the self. That's all his wish is.
As Brock will maybe expand on, that's a very toxic way to be.
It is a bad mode of being, I would say.
Yeah.
So that is the end of the first episode of Dragon Ball.
This.
Oh, of course, we grabbed this, though.
We had to grab this.
Well, maybe this is a good opportunity also, I guess, to mention the power pole. So
yeah, here's the power pole.
So we're getting kind of introduced to the real power of the power pole here. I mean, he's used it, I think, once before in this episode, but he smacked the car with it. But here...
They can extend.
He shatters the... well, I don't see any bones.
Those are like horns.
But, yeah, he shatters the top of this motherfucker's head with the power pole. And the power pole is... As we know, it represents something that can elevate you all the way up to the point that you can communicate with Kami.
We will get to that.
To do that,
right? We'll get to that.
So I wanted to point that out right now, since we're seeing the early. The first.
I'm glad. Of the thing. Yeah. I'm glad you touched on it, but I don't want to bring that up until we get there, because that's going to be huge.
That's going to be a good, fun conversation. But
yeah. It's important to note too that Goku received this from his grandfather.
Yes, he inherited it. It was given to him by, well, whatever Gohan is, and we'll figure out.
We'll have to figure out more. It's a mystery right now, right? It's a mystery right now.
So we'll put the two together.
But for now, I mean, we see the power pole is able to extend its reach, right?
Seemingly infinitely.
Yeah, seemingly infinitely. Like, well... we'll see that episode soon enough. But yes, this is the first time we get to see the power pole. This is the first time Goku defeats an enemy, let's say.
Yeah, I would say like a real enemy. Up until now, he's basically just hunted and attacked a car. So
yeah, I mean, I guess he beat Bulma.
So I guess this might be the moment in the show that you realize, like, oh, he's a real force.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, and that's the thing that I've tried to wrap my mind around. It's very hard to do, is being able to watch this, trying to put the idea of my previous knowledge right out of my mind. Because if I watched from here first, whenever I was a kid, Man, it would have been so much more suspenseful.
It
Like,
would have been
think
way
about some of
better.
the actions that happened that you're like, what is gonna happen?
I
What?
know. I was thinking about that. Like, wish I could have experienced that back then.
Right, and so here, I mean, as a kid, if this is your first time seeing Dragon Ball, you might not know that Goku can take this thing out. First of all,
Yeah.
you might even not know that Goku can reach him.
Yeah, you'd just be like,
The whole thing is the reach, right? And that's why it's important that the power pole grows at this part, because he gets on the motorcycle, right, goes off, he's too far away, and so he has the power pole extend to be able to do it, right? And I think that is saying that when you yourself, your strength is not sufficient enough to be able to overcome this dragon of chaos, to be able to get the gold, the information you need to orient yourself, you can rely on the strength of your ancestors to do it, to fulfill that goal.
yeah, I think that is fundamentally. I mean, we know it already. The only thing we really know about the pole prior to seeing it used as it is throughout the episode is that it was given to him by his grandfather.
Well, and I mean, think about
That's it, really.
other archetypal stories. Like, think about the Lion King when Simba is trying to summon the strength to confront Scar. Who does he see? Who does he meet? Mufasa, who gives him the strength to do it. It's that ancestral spirit. So this scene, even though like it's just like, oh, it just defeats one, it's like, no, there's a lot here. There's a lot to unpack.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how all of Dragon Ball is.
Yeah, it's dense. I mean, it's dense down to the first episode because we're like, you know, we kind of have to just sit and talk about it for a minute and unpack these things before we move on, because it's like we're gonna be referencing back.
We're
to
gonna
this
be
episode.
learning things as we do. Like, this is the first time I've talked about this analysis with anyone. This is the first time Brock has even seen Dragon Ball.
Oh yeah, I mean this is an exploratory process all around. This is the first real podcast that I've been like, okay, let's like put money into it and record it and like
And let's
commit
do it.
to it.
Yeah, let's
So,
do it.
So yeah, it's going to be an exploratory process for everybody.
Man, this sounds like an outro. Are we outroing right now?
Do you want to, or do you want to roll over to 2?
Man, I'm pumped right now. I'm like awake,
Well,
ready
we got
to go.
We've got neuros. We can
I
go
know,
straight
that's
into
what I'm
2.
saying. All right. Let me see. What's the next one? Oh, yeah, that's definitely 2.
2's going to be a lot of reinforcement of what we've already said, so I don't think it'll take nearly as long.
Okay, fair. Yeah, so that's pretty much the end of episode 1.
Yeah.
Goku saves Bulma, and they ride off into the sunset.
Yeah, I think episode 1, as far as like a pilot of an anime goes, is like holy shit. Like episode 1 of Dragon Ball is like god tier anime pilot episode.
Yeah.
I have to say, because like I've watched a decent amount, not like a whole lot, but
More than me.
just a lot of anime that I
Maybe
like.
that's not true, because I watched all those shitty anime with Shell.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of anime that you have to really stick it out, right?
I mean,
You sit down and you're like,
I would say it would happen in front of me, but you know.
yeah. Well, you have to stick it out for a lot that's worth it. You know, you have to be pretty fucking patient.
Yeah, you don't even have to stick this out. It's like,
But no.
boom.
Well, there's just so much in this first episode, right? And it's like, it doesn't drag. You're not like, oh, I guess here we go. We're setting up this character. We gotta watch the origin. Like, no. Like,
Oh,
things are
here's where
happening.
everything bad happens for the character so that we sympathize with them.
Or like, oh, we gotta find out about who they care about in their life, so that there's bigger stuff. Like,
Yeah,
you know, like
exactly.
You start out, here's a dude, here's a girl. They ran into each other. What's up with this world? She's got a crazy motorcycle. Like, there's no time. You just go. The story's here. I fucking love it. First episode of Dragon Ball is like, man, it's fucking
S
solid.
tier. S tier.
I don't remember the pacing of the first episode of Z. I'm excited to get to that.
Oh god, dude. Oh man.
But as
By the
first
way,
episode goes, I'm pretty fucking happy. with it.
As an aside, we have not started Z. I think we're gonna start Z soon enough.
Yeah, we're gonna be sort of
Might start Z after this, actually.
yeah, we're just gonna be
'Cause
watching Z
episode
while we
2 might
talk
not take us that
about
long.
Dragon Ball and sort of prepping for our conversations about Z. We'll be way more prepared for those. So that's probably what you're familiar with. We're gonna be killing it by then. We already know. So like
We already know.
so We're glad you came back for the VOD, you know. The shitty VOD where we couldn't control our own slides.
Hey, I got control of them eventually. I have no idea why I was doing that.
No, it's great.
Let's go to
it's a fun chaotic process.
Let's go into episode 2.
Boom.
Here it is, episode 2.
This is a house.
So these round houses. This is capsule number 1.
Yeah,
so I think we should talk about capsules a little bit.
Yeah, I haven't talked to you about capsules at all. So, I'm just gonna free associate about capsules for a second and see if I make sense of it. So, Bulma has the ability to conceptualize things. She represents that level of consciousness in which you gather data and you can extrapolate those things without having to embody them per se. So she can pull a house out of her pocket because she represents that part of Goku's brain. She can materialize. I think that's where these ideas are originally coming from, right? Capsules as a whole in the Dragon Ball series, no. But right now in this analysis, I definitely want to make that association because if she is going to represent that half of the brain, that thing that's like, I take knowledge and I create something out of it.
I think it's more than that necessarily. I think it's I take knowledge, I categorize it, I name it, and therefore I have control over it.
And then she has dominated it. She has complete domination over these things.
I mean, that's exactly how humans operate.
Well, that's how you map things psychologically.
Yeah, that's how you map things. Exactly.
And so that stands out to me immediately. I'm trying to come up with this on the spot because I haven't even thought about the fucking capsules, but so
capsules.
I think that it's just really interesting too, this idea that like the first thing we see come out of a capsule is like a home, like this just like domicile that can be put up anywhere. It's still this concept of potential that I was talking about. I really like the idea of potential and talking about the like in archetypal stories, potential exists literally, and in the world of ideas, potential literally exists. So like the potential house, while it doesn't exist like in the sense of the physical world and that we that we're interfacing with, it doesn't exist, but it's more real in a meta sense. So this house is like a meta house. This is like the idea of a house, and that's why it's so like it's almost, it has no features, right? It's like solid gray, and it's just like a mapped sort of like.
And what does a house need? House. This, and this, and it has like, everything it needs.
Like this is the definition of house. Like this is literally, it's got a little chimney on it. It's like it's house. This is like this house is idea of house, right? And so she conjures the house, and it can be put anywhere. So that's representative of this idea that like
houses can be put anywhere.
Houses can be put anywhere. You can occupy, like you can go into the world and you can conquer a space. Like that's what a domicile represents.
You are interpreting the capsules as Goku's mapping of social objects or social ideas. Let's say the idea of a house, like you're saying.
What I'm saying is the fact that Bulma is the inventor that works with these is a result of that idea. I don't think the capsules as a whole in the story
right now. Right. I know what you're saying, but you're saying right now.
But yeah, well, you think of Bulma as this force, right? And she's an inventor, and she creates all these things, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that she's created is this like, well, she hasn't created, but she has inherited, I would say, the creation of capsules through Capsule Corp, right? And so like
the strength of her ancestral, right?
Like her archetype, the strength of Bulma's ancestry is. Like,
ooh, that gets deeper. Feminine. That gets deeper, powerful. Very powerful, yeah.
And it's like, yeah, Goku's a strong character. Bulma commands physical objects. Like, she is the master.
She can make a home wherever she wants.
She is the potential, right?
Right.
She represents the potential of chaos and.
Well, I would say it's the. I wouldn't say it's Baphomet necessarily, though. It's not like the maligned.
No, not like that.
Yeah, but go on.
No, the good potential of chaos.
Right, exactly.
I think that there's a lot of negative association of chaos sort of stuff that's like, how to put it? You think of like the dragon of chaos is something that always needs to be slayed, and so it's got this negative association of it, but what comes from that chaos, like, is ultimately good, right? And so the existence of the chaos, we have to remember that Tiamat was the framework that they used to create the world. Like, it was necessary. Like, without Tiamat, the world wouldn't exist.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
the necessity of chaos.
Tiamat. That's what I meant. I said Baphomet.
Yeah, I was wondering.
Let me
I was
correct myself there.
Like, yeah. Okay.
Now we're on the same page.
But yeah, so it's a necessary chaos, and that's the good of it, because the good was nested in the chaos, right? Like, if you go confront chaos, and what you get from it is good, the good was in there all the time, right? It existed beyond your perception because maybe you weren't oriented enough to see it, but it existed potentially. So that's why I'm talking about potential a lot, because this is potential incarnate.
Do you think that because Bulma has inherited this, though, she doesn't necessarily respect it?
Could be. That
Because
could be why her wish is for a boyfriend that she's not earning on her own.
Well, also I was gonna say, she, and we'll get into this when we get to the episode, but I briefly want to mention that she does lose the capsules in, like, not even, it's like a nonchalant, it's like thrown away. It's like, oh, I forgot them. And then they just lose them and they don't have them again. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because I think that's reflective of Bulma's arrogance and deceit, right? And the reason that, let's say, Goku's power pole never fails him. He never leaves it behind, right?
Yeah, and you know, as we
it's
go
that
what
I'm getting at is the respect for the ancestral knowledge that's been passed down.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
One of them has it, one of them doesn't, and as a result, Bulma loses this ability, let's say.
Well, we don't see Goku really abusing the power pole, right? It's like he has it for when he needs to use it, but he's not like just constantly using it to get everywhere he goes, and like, you know, because he could.
Yeah.
He could just use it as a mode of transportation, and that's exactly what Bulma does, is she uses her inherited ancestry as a mode of transportation. Goku uses his to sustain himself, right? To fight things and like to interface with the world, originally anyway, in a way that could not be more forthright than it is.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying here.
Yes. So Bulma is not forthright, right? It's almost like there's so much of it, and she has inherited it just by default that I kind of think of I think of Bulma as a force just sort of sent out into the world, almost like. I don't want to like predestined to just go in a direction until change. It's kind of like here's all of the potential that was just given to you. You just go and see what happens. So she's just kind of like on this chaotic journey. Obviously, you know, she's trying to confront the Dragon of Chaos with just a massive amount of potential, right? And you think of like she's been given so much to be able.
She has been given so much also, and it's her background. We can touch on that a little bit, like how she comes from a lot as well.
Well, I think that it's important. I really like this, and you don't see this as much, I guess, in representations, but it's like it's too easy to get the idea of wealth tied up in negative traits whenever you're doing these types of analyses, right? Because it's like, and not just in analysis, but in like writing, I think that people lean on the idea that like the opulence of wealth is this sort of like inherently negative thing, whereas like Bulma and Capsule Corp always seem to be trying to use it as a force for good, right? And so it's kind of like it sticks with that archetypal biblical type thing that's like, you know, you'll be prosperous, like, you know, like God wants you to prosper is like this kind of archetypal idea that's like ask and you will be given. It's like, okay, well, when you're given, what do? You take that potential and you put it towards good, you know,
and you continue to confront chaos.
And so Bulma originally here, we see she's not oriented necessarily good, but she does know how to confront chaos, you know.
Right.
She has been oriented towards it. She's old enough. She's older than Goku too, right? We mentioned that.
Right,
so it's like, so we're back around to that. But yeah, so I think that the capsules originally represent that, and yeah, I think you're right. It's a very like it's the striking thing. It's the origins of the magic system, I think, or not magic system, but the magical occurrences within the.
I mean,
show,
for
too.
all intents and
The
purposes.
first weird things we see happen is like Goku has a tail, right?
Yeah.
Goku's got big pole that extends and does crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Bulma's got capsules that capture things, right? As far as like significant things that make it different from like a normal world, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the first things you see. So they're of like, in Toriyama's mind, of great significance to express.
Right, and I think that the idea that just because Toriyama can't articulate why he was doing what he was doing doesn't mean there wasn't a reason.
Oh, well, this is something that I've just been really thinking about a lot lately. You know, it's just this concept that you have ideas that you don't know how to articulate. And I think these ideas are so innate in the way that we express our culture that you just see it manifest itself here. And I think this is so clear that it's sometimes really hard to accept that it wasn't intentional.
Yeah, I mean, I find it hard to do so. Okay, so let's move on. So the house, the capsules. Let's move on here.
So, wanted to grab this frame just because it's great. At this time, Goku has no understanding of why someone would be ashamed while they're naked. He's still
He's
in
still
that
Adam, right?
pre-cosmogonic state. He's Adam. He is just here, like, has no idea why Bulma's upset that he's in the bathroom, and he's just like, okay.
Don't you want me to scrub your back too? You
It's
did
like-
it for me.
Yeah, which we didn't talk about it, but she bathes him,
Yeah.
and it kind of establishes this dynamic where it's kind of like he's a kid, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's like very clearly that he is just nothing but not knowing things, so to speak. Like,
Right. She gives him a towel,
yeah,
and she says, and he's like holding it, and he's naked there, and she tells him to put it on. He's like this, and he like puts it over his face,
yeah,
and yeah, it's just a complete lack of that any social
well, I
knowledge.
just
or anything
love
like
that the Goku's like this blank state. Like, he's
Yeah.
always getting to learn at the beginning of the story, and it's
Mhm.
like it's aligned with also. I like that in Dragon Ball, Goku just learning new things is also aligned with that journey, right? You need to make that association because it's like,
Yeah, he's constantly learning as well.
yeah, confronting the unknown, right? And it's like we see like the original confronting of the unknown, let's say, is the self-consciousness. Here it's like, so that dynamic we're talking about is like, I think it's just illustrated here. Not much to say else about the picture.
Well, yeah, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. We can move on probably from this. Yeah, we can move on from this. So here, this is supper. They have supper after they bathe, and Goku's not very fond of bread.
Yeah, he looks at this work of farming, and he's just like, what is this not protein induced?
Well,
Sustaining.
what is this? And for the record, I'm not the biggest proponent of bread. I think that the reason that many people have like celiac and gluten allergies is because bread is processed very minimally, but it is still processed to the point that it's not really the best thing for humans to eat. And so in this, Toriyama will comment on that, even though he might not even know it. But here, Goku is saying that he wants to go get some
Yeah.
real food.
I mean, he might be just trying to say literally, like, Goku is a monkey. Like, he
Right.
wants to go out and hunt and eat, and he don't like bread. But I think really it's that's him saying that the sort of ancestral man don't want to eat bread.
Well, yeah, I think that it's also about. I think it's about health though as well. Like, bread is not going to be able to sustain you in the way you need to be sustained in order to go on a journey like this.
Man cannot sustain himself on bread alone.
Right there, exactly.
So yeah, the bread is not enough for Goku, obviously, because he's the hero. So he needs to go out and do what Goku do.
He hates the coffee as well.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, that's bitter. I don't like it. And it's a initial rejection and just a trusting of intuition, I think, is that, and it shows from Goku. And I think that, like, that innocence, like taking the first hit of a cigarette, let's say, right, the first drag of a cigarette when you're younger, and it does not taste good, and you're just, right, that intuition should be listened to.
Yeah, so Goku's listening to that intuition here.
And he always does.
Yeah.
He always does. And so, yeah, I mean, just with all this spread, let's talk about it. He's just not, and you can see by the look on his face, it's another reason why we grabbed it, because it's just like, poor Goku.
Yeah, and I will say with this analysis, it's not universal. Like, whenever you look future, you know, DBZ and Super episodes and Goku's eating bread, well, a lot of the themes are going to decay as we move along, and they're going to.
Unfortunately, yeah, and we'll for the. My plan for the future is to stop at Frieza, because I think that's really where the story ends for me, and a lot of.
Yeah, if along the way we start saying like, hey, what if this thing from the Cell Saga actually represented this? Like, maybe there'll be something, but I'm not anticipating.
I'm not really, and my hopes aren't high for that.
But this seems to be only partially tread territory, so maybe we'll find something out.
Very partially. I mean, we're treading here, but as far as we can tell, no one in the community is doing any kind of analysis even close to this.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard it.
I mean, the biggest one I would see would be Dragon Ball Dissection, but that's really a lot of just, here's what happens and here's how I feel about it.
Man, I hate that. I want to say that just on a record somewhere. I hate this bullshit that, like, every time an episode of a fucking TV show comes out, it's like, hey, here's this episode explained. And then you go,
here's what happens.
And it's just a summary. And it's like, if you like this video, like, comment, and subscribe. As always, hit the bell button if you want to be notified. Comment down below.
Like, well, also, how do you feel about, because, like, for example, EFAP gets a lot of criticism for the length of their episodes, and it's like, you're talking you're talking for a longer amount of time than the episode actually runs, and it's like, because there's more there.
Yeah, babies have short attention spans, and they don't know how to talk about ideas. They only know how to talk about things. So,
and here's the things that happen in the episode, and here's how I feel about it, and that's pretty much as far as we've got in the Dragon Ball community.
It's like, wow, I was so I've never seen your channel before, but I'm glad to know how you feel about specifically what happened. Better like, comment, and subscribe. Like, I don't know. It doesn't really inspire anything from me. It doesn't make me think about it at all. You know, it's so hopefully we can stumble onto some ideas that'll make somebody else want to talk about it and tell us some stuff that we don't know about it. Like, I would like to have a discourse going.
Yeah, that'd be great. But so here, I think we're pretty much settled on that. So the reason I brought up this one is because I wanted to introduce the idea that these two characters, let's say, are also cowardly and mostly inept, right? They're not prepared for the malice that the world has to offer either, partially because they're extensions of Pilaf.
Yeah.
So here, I mean, they get scared and they're like looking for the Dragon Ball amongst all of these bones, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, I would think of anything that they do as an extension of Pilaf doing that. Like, if they go do something, Pilaf did that.
Basically, right. They're an extension of his will for sure. And so really the cowardice here.
Yeah, we're basically just looking at how cowardly Pilaf as an idea just is. You know, he's like, he is not. I mean, looking at this image, you can say they're looking at the bones and they're frightened by them. They're like, oh, we can't tread here. It's kind of like, okay, well, you're still crippled by the idea of death. You're still, you know, unable to confront that level of fear, so to speak, right? It's like, you know, and that's a childlike thing, not being.
Well, it's also an inhibiting thing, right?
Of mortality.
Mm-hmm. And that's something Pilaf hasn't reconciled, so obviously it'll extend to those of his will. Yeah. I'm trying to think if the next slide we have goes beyond what I was gonna say. Thank you. So right, I don't remember the exact lines here, but I think it's also important to note that they have attracted Goku's attention. And by doing so, it'll lead to the next actions that we'll see. But Goku's interaction with chaos, that he goes out into the nighttime, which, by the way, Toriyama rarely draws the night, which in later seasons of this show.
Yeah, nighttime typically seems to be saved for scenes that Pilaf is in. There's a lot of them skulking. There's a lot of them just, I don't know. I think he just subconsciously was like, they're doing bad things. They're going out at night. It's a pretty archetypal idea.
And so Goku's interfacing with this new knowledge, thinking that the plane is a bird, is what draws him out here, right? That's pretty much what I wanted to mention as well.
Yeah.
So let's go on to. See, I knew it.
Yeah.
So a little more on this part. And I go back to it. I did a double take. So this small conflict gets resolved by wolves arriving and chasing Lionshu out of there, and Goku smashing up.
Yeah,
plane.
as an avatar of nature too, which
Right.
we've seen that Pilaf is not conquered. So
Right.
shoot away from the idea of death by nature itself. I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
Right, exactly. But one thing that I did want to mention is that Goku being willing to eat anything.
Yeah.
That is part of that.
Yeah, it's used as a
It's
gag.
it's used as a gag, but it's that Adam-like nature of Goku.
Not discerning,
Yeah,
but sustaining.
exactly.
Yes.
Simply sustaining.
Yes.
And so he brings home a wolf, and they presume. I guess Goku presumably. Eats it.
Well, the not discerning that you had mentioned. You have the picture of the. Did you get a picture of the centipede?
Mm-mm.
Damn, I thought you did.
That's what I thought. I thought the next one was. I thought I got it, but go on.
Anyway, we might have, might not. It might just be nested in the wrong spot. But
Yeah, I might have put them out of order.
But there is a point when he comes back and he's got a centipede in his hand, and it's like, yeah, he's just not discerning. It's like sustenance is sustenance to him. You know, like living is living.
Like like an animal, right? Like animals not animals do discern their food, but not as scrutinously as humans.
I'm also really glad that the next frame is what it is, because of how important it is to that specifically.
Yeah.
Because immediately after this, our next frame is Goku ascending to being of a level of consciousness to be discerning.
Right. He starting to wake up. So let's get to it.
Boom.
Bright in the morning. Bright in the morning, by the way. Look at that light that's shining through.
Look at the enlightenment.
Look at the enlightenment.
So in
on
this
Goku's
image,
face.
I mean, the bloom is just blown way out. Goku is being enlightened. I think you understand how. It's
you should understand how.
So he has come to understand what Bulma wouldn't show him before willingly, which is that she has no balls. His grandpa had balls, and he used to sleep on them. So this is canon. But he couldn't sleep on Bulma's balls because she didn't have them. And thus, he becomes conscious. I think that's how that works, right?
That was a good way.
No,
good
but,
way to start it off.
Well, he becomes aware of the feminine by understanding what the feminine
is missing,
is lacking,
right,
from the masculine. And so I think there's a little bit to be said about that, but ultimately I think that this is the beginning of Goku's character here, because he has become self-conscious. He is aware of the otherness of the world now,
Finally,
represented in
yeah.
Bulma, and all of the potential of the world, because it's like, I have discovered another human being in the world that is fundamentally different from me. So he's become aware of the idea that he does not know all that is necessary to sustain himself, and now
It's a seriously jarring experience.
Yeah, he is. Look how shook he is. I mean, he's like, I've never seen anything like that before.
And this is what happens when your belief structure falls out.
Yes.
And that's just what happens.
Yep. He thought. Well, I mean, this is a Petersonian thing.
Yeah.
It's like he thought he understood. You know that he had mapped all of the territory that needed to be mapped, and then some element comes in and tells him like, no, you do not have
Any
everything
kind of
mapped.
map. Yeah, you have nothing mapped, basically.
At all. You don't know where you fit in the hierarchy. Like, you thought you were at the top of the dominance hierarchy, but you just discovered that one exists that is so much bigger than you. Like, so this is his enlightenment. This is the Adam finally biting into the fruit, so to speak.
Let's
of
say,
the
yeah.
story, right?
I agree, yeah.
And so yeah, we see here Goku is just bewildered. He has no idea what's happening.
And his eyes are wide open.
Yeah.
Another thing with the
So,
light.
yeah,
Now,
I love the sun here, the imagery of the
the
enlightenment.
sun,
is just
right?
So good.
But it's so accurate.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's so accurate that this. I don't think it can be even argued that this is not intentional.
The thing is, if this is intentional, man, Toriyama is a fucking. I mean, he's already a legend, but he's
a
so
legend,
much
man.
more of a fucking
He's a
legend.
fucking
if this
legend.
Is the intention. If this is his intent with the framing and the imagery and everything, I mean, it's.
I would love to ask him one day,
Man.
if I ever can. But who knows? Right. So, anything else you want to say about this moment, which is huge?
I mean, what do you have anything?
I just want to note that Goku does remove her underwear, and that will
Yeah.
come up again later.
Yeah, it's necessary.
That's
But-
all I want to mention, really.
Well, I mean, I guess technically it's necessary to say, like, yes, Goku is aware now.
Yes.
So yeah, this is the most important moment so far. In the series. The only way that I think episode 1 could be more salient in its sort of archetypal nature is if this happened in episode 1. You know, because you cannot have the mythos without this. Like,
Oh no!
this is so fundamentally what makes it mythological in a sense. So
Oh yeah, I mean the whole interaction between this new information coming in, right? So let's move on to this. We just pulled this
and now Goku is ready
and mad.
to confront the world.
Yeah, so he wants to go
Fucking love
exercise,
this.
right?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's fluffed up now. Like, he as just normal,
Well, he
the
goes
young
back to what.
boy
Well, he goes.
immediately is like, oh, I have to become more. Like, I'm not
Right,
big enough.
it's-
I'm not strong enough. I'm not impressive enough. Like,
And the best way he knows how to do that, he goes out and does it
yeah,
to the best of his ability.
whatever his interpretation of it is, that is good for him, right? It's like he knows fundamentally that, like, okay, I need to be more than I am.
And so he goes out to be more. And what does he find?
What does he find? A turtle.
Now, this turtle is very important.
This is a very important turtle.
We'll get to the importance of this turtle probably next episode, I would say.
We're going to be talking about the importance of this turtle for a few episodes.
I mean, but we'll get to the first part of it.
So, what he represents now is definitely not represented. So, I think that's very intentional. I think that Toriyama had to have some idea of what he was doing, because Goku's treatment of this turtle and the ramifications of how he treats the turtle are like...
Yeah, exactly. So it
Oh,
is,
man.
and Goku eats anything. Established in the same episode. So he wants to go out and better himself, and how does one do that? by first helping someone else.
And discerning.
Discerning. Because
He's
he's
being
throwing up
discerning now.
boulders.
Yes, his eyes are open. He is now being discerning, right?
Yes.
So we're seeing his, the eye of Horus, so to speak. Now he is aware. Now he is actually, not only is he aware, but he is pointing his eye at something. And he's seeing. So he is making he understands. Now he can talk to the turtle, so to speak.
Right, and now he's not going to eat any animal he comes across.
Right.
From now on, because of the discernment that he's gained.
Yes.
Right.
He has gained the ability to now know the spirit of the turtle, so to speak. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very important, like super important. I think that, like, the fact that it's a turtle really doesn't matter. I think that the idea.
Besides its future importance.
Well, yeah, but I mean.
But yeah.
Ultimately, he represents. He's. What do I want to call him? He's the representative of the animal kingdom, in a sense. He's like this sort of avatar of nature. He's the spirit of nature speaking through this turtle, right? The animus of the world that represents not only nature but speaks for nature is coming through the turtle because he can speak. He's conscious and he's like, "Hey, man, what the fuck? What are you doing with me? Are you?" So that is just, to me, it just.
Well, the speech is
awareness.
Another important thing to say is that putting forth your will into the world, right? He is able to do that, and therefore he is more than simply another animal.
Right. Like, it's kind of this nested idea, I think, that it's like because he can, then he must respect that the turtle can.
Yeah.
And he, it's not causal.
And that's a big idea, actually.
It's not causal, right? But, like, it's close to this sort of idea of, like, now that Goku is aware, he can talk to the turtle. It's not because, but it's, like, the sequencing of it, in this sense, I don't think it necessarily needs to be causal.
Right.
That it's sequential. The sequential nature makes it causal, in a sense. It's like this is part of the archetypal story, which is in and of itself like a causal type situation. So I think that in this case, this is like a representation now of Goku's ability to, to make that discernment and understand the spirit of, that exists within this, this being that needs help. Like, because I think he's a turtle just because, like, a turtle can't get from point A to point B very easily, right?
Right.
So it's like, what does Goku do when he comes along a helpless thing that he would normally eat?
I think another important point to it is that Goku has just decided to go out to improve himself, right? And you improve yourself by helping those who you can help and who ask for your help, let's say.
Right, because even if you're not cognizant of it, like, those who you can help are an extension of you because you are an arbiter of something bigger than yourself in the world, right?
Well, I mean, let's say
so currently Goku is not very high in the dominance hierarchy technically, but he needs to act as if he were, so that he can improve the world around him, right? And so even if he's not like, say someone who's integrated into society to the level that, like, Bulma is, right, where that change can be affected, it's like, I think it's important to point out here, like, on the individual level, it still has value, right? Like, the fact that he's not, like, controlling things with capsules, like, the one-to-one interpersonal between, like, two entities, just saying, like, even on the individual level, it's good to help for yourself and for the other simultaneously, right? That even if you're not the person who's like the owner of a company that's sending out these capsules that help everybody control the world around them, you can still pick up a turtle and carry it to the other side of the road, right? It's like,
exactly,
you always have within you the ability to make something better, right?
And that's the first step in bettering yourself.
So yeah, that's
clean up things. Let's say clean up things that you can clean up.
Sure. I mean,
that are apparent.
Yeah, it's like if you see something that could be better, and it's within your ability to make it better, you know,
Then you have an obligation to make it better.
because you need to respect the spirit of what speaks through the turtle, which is, you know, spoiler alert, it's God. It's God.
God has the same voice as the turtle.
It's turtles all the way down.
So so that's Goku's interaction with it, but someone's not very happy about it.
Oh, I love this frame.
This is an amazing frame.
I don't. Man, we're gonna be just cherry picking all the best frames out of this. Like every time we start looking, we're like, "Oh, that's amazing."
Oh, there's
That's
one.
beautiful.
There's one in the Baba saga that I'm really
Oh, there's just so many.
Oh,
it's gonna be good.
looking forward to.
There's one frame where when we were watching it originally, I just had to stop it and run it back and find the frame so we could sit there and laugh for like a minute straight. That's great.
So someone's not very happy about it. Why is Bulma not happy about this?
Why would Bulma not be happy about this? I don't know. You tell me.
Bulma is not trying to better herself in this journey.
True. She is trying to get something she hasn't earned.
Right. And so her interpretation of this is not an opportunity to clean something up that needs to be cleaned.
It's a deviation.
But it is, right, it's a deviation from the path, let's say. And that is, paradoxically, I guess, is the wrong analysis of what you should do in this situation.
It's the journey before destination thing. That's that concept, the journey before destination, basically understanding that you're gonna miss the forest for the trees if you think like that. Like that's at the very root of another analysis that I want to get into, which is the Cosmere. It's like because Stormlight's like it's printed on the back of the first book. It's like journey before destination is part of like the whole core theme there too. So it's like there's definitely this fundamental idea of weakness here.
But I love this picture because she's pointing towards herself.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean weakness of character, obviously, in that like
Yeah.
she doesn't know, like she doesn't know what the path is, and she is arrogant in thinking that she knows what the path is. So whenever Goku is on the path, she doesn't know, right? So it's a detriment to her own betterment, because if only she knew the value of what Goku was doing, right? But since she's
then
arrogant,
she would be able to
know.
utilize something later on that would have really.
Oh yeah, if she well, that's the thing, right? She doesn't recognize the value in the turtle, and as such does not earn the prize that Goku can control
by walking the way,
and she cannot because she didn't earn it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And not just because. She
oh
didn't
my
earn
God!
it, but...
So Adam is walking with God now.
Oh wow, yeah. Eve's not happy with it.
Oh my
Archetypally,
God! Oh man!
Archetypally,
I did not even think of
Adam's still with God, yeah. He just found God in a different place.
Jesus. No pun intended.
Yeah, I think that's sort of I think it's an interesting idea. So it's kind of deviating a bit from the Christian script, but not necessarily. It's kind of a cool idea to keep these Adam and Eve characters around because they represent so much. It's like, well,
yeah.
Let's point them at more things than just the creation myth and then kill them off for another idea, right? It's like, let's keep bringing them and just keep them around for these ideas and drag them through it.
And so
this situation
Goku chooses to continue to walk with God and all the way to their destination, which we will get to.
Oh, yeah.
Next episode.
That's it.
All right, so to conclude episode 2, we're on episode 2. What in the hell? We're on episode 2. Go ahead. If you wanted to have any final
Do you mean
thoughts.
episode 2 of the show?
No, episode 2 of well, actually both. Yeah, episode 2 of the show and episode 2 because I didn't know this episode 2.
So yeah, I think that already, I mean, there's just so much to look at.
2 hours in, 2 episodes.
Oh yeah, well
if you multiply this out, think about how many shows we're gonna do.
Oh, it's gonna be smooth sailing right? These are all the fundamental ideas. Like, gotta hash them out first. But as we get along, like, we're gonna,
You said that, but then you also said it took us only 7 minutes less to get through episode 2 than episode 1.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Might not be smooth sailing.
Well,
And
I'm anticipating it. Well, that it's just not a 1-to-1 because it's like I'm not going to be introducing the idea of
and the first 3 episodes are really
what Goku could
because then
represent. And all
Oolong. No, because we have some new characters we're going to be talking about. Season 1 is going to be nuts. It's probably going to be at least an hour of analysis per episode.
I don't think for every episode.
13
13-hour analysis.
13 will be like an hour and a half. Episode 13.
Oh, well, definitely that one. But like, as far as
Fire
things
Mountain?
that happen, man, a lot happens in season 1. Actually, season 1 just moves at such a clip. It's like
There's
just
no
flying.
stopping. Yeah, it's great.
Oh yeah, like yeah, there's really nothing that happens in season 1 that lasts more than 2 episodes. Like they just go. So it'll take a little while. It's going to be
I think we'll have a lot to say about a lot. Like, man, I think we're gonna take probably an hour an episode for most.
well, I
of
mean,
the-
I guess
most
if
of
this
them.
is anything like when Jordan was doing Genesis, it's like there's endless amounts of complexity to extrapolate from this, right?
That's exactly right. And yeah, I mean, I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea of our biblical analogies. Like, we're not trying to be a religious podcast or anything like that.
Oh no, I just think it's fascinating. Like this aligns with so many of these ideas that it's like I'm not trying to be religious. I'm comparing to Tiamat. Like we're
Well,
going
yeah, we're
way
using
beyond.
multiple sources. I just wanted to clear that up. But any other thoughts to end us off?
Not really. No, I think that that this is a pretty good foundation to work off of. Like I think we're a lot more organized than our last attempt. You know?
Yes, and I think going forward, we'll just continue to improve as Goku has shown us, and we'll just follow the way. We'll walk with God, let's say.
Sure. We'll just make it better.
So this was Get the Mic, episode 2. I'm Owl.
I'm Brock.
Make sure you smash the like button.
God damn.
Like and subscribe, ring the bell. Everything cringe under the sun. Do it all.
Of course, you can always check out our Patreon if you really want to support us. It helps us out a lot because you know how it is with the adpocalypse. We calling it the adpocalypse still?
No, it's like the YouTube. I don't even.
You know how it be.
You know how it is. But if you did like this, we were gonna continue doing episodes probably Thursdays and Sundays going forward. So we might get 2 episodes of the show a day within one of those Tuesdays or Thursdays or Sundays. But if we might be able to get more as well. If
Yeah,
we do,
we'll see.
we might do an extra long episode.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get better at this for sure. I think we're going to get a bit more efficient in our speech. So,
Yes,
we'll
and
be moving.
and just know this Thursday no episode.
Oh, yeah.
This
obviously.
Sunday no episode, and then we'll pick it up after that.
Yeah, for context, for anyone wanting to listen back, it's Christmas, so.
Ikrima. So we're taking a Christmas break
But we will be diving into this
when we come back,
pretty extensively.
and we're gonna be watching Dragon Ball Z very shortly.
Oh, yeah. No, this
We're
is-
gonna watch the first.
This is
episode.
definitely going to extend all the way up through the Frieza saga.
Has to.
Otherwise, what's the point?
Well, all right. That's about all.
Peace out.